Shadowtown Right was for two reasons. Number one, I eventually want to direct an episode of Supernatural. And since Supernatural will probably go 17 seasons, I have many more chances. It's literally going to be like, hey, Dane, get over here. What, Sammy? Eventually it's going to happen. They are going to get old. It's done. But I want to direct an episode of that show. I'm doing my research to be able to hopefully get a shot at directing an episode of that show at some point. But also, just to know peek behind the curtain of the process of prepping a network show. It was also just film school for me because I've done a lot of episodes of TV in my life as an actor, but never gone through the prep process the 2 weeks before shooting starts. So it was something I wanted to learn how to. I just wanted to understand that. And Supernatural is, quite frankly, my home set, even though I never do the show. And I know that sounds weird that I would call it my home set, but I am friends with so many of the crew up there that it was just a natural place for me to go and feel welcomed and shadow and learn and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I was doing it. It was sort of twofold. But eventually, would I love to direct an episode of that show? Absolutely. And I will be bothering Bob Singer as much as humanly possible until he finally gives in. But also, just in general, it was an educational process for me to see how that thing works. Because it's different. When you make your own thing, you're on your own schedule with your own time and your own crew and your own, you're creating everything yourself. So it's very different to do it on somebody else's. Network TV moves so quickly. You're putting together half a feature film and shooting it in 8 days, and it's a daunting amount of work. You have a ton of moving parts that pull it all together. And Supernatural specifically is very complicated. If you compare it to, say, a Law and Order or that kind of show, where it's procedural, the shows are, not that they're not challenging, but they're much easier, because typically Satan doesn't show up. I mean, there's a certain amount of special effects and things that happen in Supernatural, and it's grand in scope and it's unique in its style, and it's just a very challenging show. So it's like I'm looking at seniors when I should be staring at freshmen, but I'm aiming high for that one and learning from Tom Wright, who directed that episode. I don't know how much you know about. You probably have never heard of the man, but he's a very, very, very well-established TV director. And the one thing I found fascinating, Tom Wright is 75, something like that, years old, been doing it forever. When you're a member of the Directors Guild, one of the things you have to do is get your card, your first membership card, signed by somebody, another Directors Guild member, to authorize you joining the union. Tom Wright's Directors Guild card is signed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh.
Is that not awesome?
Yes.
He was Alfred Hitchcock's last storyboard artist. He worked with Hitchcock on his last few films when he was a young man. And in the Supernatural production office, the director's office, is a picture of Tom with Alfred Hitchcock when Tom was young and Alfred was Alfred. And it's just, it's hard to be more intimidating than that, And to know more about what like that guy's just been everywhere and done everything. He's a fascinating guy. So, like I say, shadowing him was more about the education than it was anything else. And it was amazing. It was amazing watching him work.
Now the question is, who signed yours?
Say it again?
Who signed yours?
I'm not in the DGA right now. No, because, in theory, I'll probably have to join because of the commercial work, but everything else I've done, it's like when you're in SAG, one of the ways to join SAG is to get a Screen Actors Guild job. You get the first one free, and the next one you have to join. And that's the same thing with DGA. So the last spot I just did was a freebie, and then the next one I'll probably have to join. And I don't know if I'll get to sign it. I've been thinking about that. I kind of want, I have a bunch of cool, fun director friends who are mentors or whatever, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I also heard an interesting story, and Tom swears it's true. Tom swears this is true, so I believe it. But that Steven Spielberg, who is the youngest member ever of the Directors Guild. He was he entered the Directors Guild at the age of 19, youngest guy ever. And I remember that story when he designed a shot. He had a shot laid out at Universal's backlot for something, It was intricate. And he was going back and forth with, like, the gaffer or somebody, the dolly grip, somebody, not one of the higher up guys. And the dolly grip was saying, you know, I gotta be honest, Mr. Spielberg, if you move the track and do this, it's gonna make what you want in the shot better. And Steven's like, no, this will work. And the guy's like, okay. And Steven's like, all right, I'll tell you what, we're about to break for lunch. Switch it around your way. If you're right and I'm wrong, I'll give you my director's guild card. Which, of course, is Spielberg, right? The guy moved the stuff around. Spielberg shot this, didn't rehearse it, and he gave the guy the card. Said, you're right, this is better. And turned over his director's guild card, which is, kind of a cherished item to this, dolly grip, who has it in his wallet all the time. It's kind of a cool story. Kind of a cool thing to have. You can put your kids through college selling that on eBay, Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Misha, hi. So glad to have you in my family. If your voice goes higher, it does help.
I want to know what was your favorite bedtime story?
My favorite bedtime story? Interesting question. I don't remember ever being read a bedtime story as a kid. I don't remember being read a bedtime story, so I don't have one for that, but I'll tell you what I used to like to play when I was a kid. My favorite thing to do, my mom would always make the bed really tight, like tuck the sheets in really tight, right? So my favorite thing to do was to get into bed and lay under the sheet with it so tight, with my arms outside the sheet, my body under, and I would pretend I was a pin in a man's pocket. Really, truly. And so I was that guy. I was like right here, like with the pin parting out, and I would just be, in my mind, existing as the guy went around and did stuff. I was like the pin. Seeing the notepads on the desk. That was my little fantasy camp I had on my brain. One time, this is completely a non sequitur, but do you guys remember, I don't even know if it will make sense in Italy, but do you guys remember Ernest? Old 1980s commercial, Ernest was a camp in a bunch of goofy movies, and he was this big redneck comic, essentially, in the States. And he had this bit he did on a local TV show when I was a kid that was him, he did this like a special, he did these sketches. And one of the sketches was, he was this redneck, which is what he always played, and he had a son named Mistake. It was a very dark bit. And his son was huge. The son was essentially played by Mark Shepard. It wasn't a boy, he was supposed to be a kid, but it was a full-grown man. And he'd say, come on, Mistake, let's go to bed. And so there was a scene where Mistake is in bed, and Mistake goes, Daddy, read me a bedtime story. And so I remember thinking this is so funny. So he says, all right. And he sits down and he grabs the phone book. And he opens the phone book and he says, once there was a boy named Mistake who mashed his fingers and caught on fire and fell off the end of the world. And I thought, and then the boy goes, that's a good story, Dad. And I remember thinking that was just so freaking hilarious and bizarre. So